What's up, guys and girls? Welcome back to another Impulsive TCG video. Today, like always, just another discussion video. I was going through some of my old stuff, some of my old cards, going through my trainer binder, and it got me thinking, like, what's the end game? What is the end game for my collection? You know, what do I want to have $100,000 collection? Do I want to have $200,000? Do I want it to be $1 million? What is the end goal? I know for me, for my trainer collection, I want to have it all the way up to date at some point, and then, you know, I'll continue updating as time goes on. But at some point, I have to, you know, think about it. Do I want to be doing that when I'm 80 years old, when Pokemon's still printing full art trainers? Maybe, maybe not. Do I want to sell it at some point? Maybe. Do I want to grow it as an investment? Awesome, possibly. So I just wanted to kind of deep dive into see, like, what we feel about, like, what are people's different end games for collecting? What is your end game? So yeah, I just wanted to start off, like, probably the main type of person that exists in Pokemon and most hobbies is somebody who just collects to collect. Nothing wrong with this, but, you know, typically these are people that saw Logan Paul unbox Charizards and stuff like that, or has recently gone back into it because of prismatic evolutions. It's like, evolutions are super cool. These are the type of people that are, you know, picking up a slab here or there, you know, completing a set maybe. Maybe they complete Journey Together, maybe they complete Destined Rivals, maybe even Prismatic Evolutions. These are people that are completing sets with, like, you know, they don't have an overall goal in mind. There isn't a finished goal, if that makes sense. Their goal is just, I'm collecting what I like, which is completely reasonable. Nothing wrong with that. But these are typically the people that you'll see leave the hobby after about a year, maybe 2 years, because there isn't a goal to keep going. There isn't something that continues to keep them entrenched in grinding it out. Okay, I'm gonna buy again this month, buy again. You know, there's not that, because once they've kind of completed those super chill goals, master sets, things of that nature, they normally move on to other things, which is completely reasonable. People are entitled to do what they like and what they find fun. So these are typically the collectors that you'll see most common, and normally the collectors that will not see an end game. Their end game is a lot shorter time frame. So that's kind of where these casual hobby collectors are, who only just want to kind of complete a couple sets. Their end games are normally a lot shorter for where they see themselves in a year or two. And overall, there's a ton of different types of collectors. You know, like I said earlier, you got the kind of casual collector, you have master set collectors. I know people around me pretty often that are only going for master sets. They want a master set of every single SV era, every single one, and that's their goal. Okay, that's a pretty lofty goal. It'll be pretty expensive in the long, or like maybe short term, but long term, those master sets will probably be worth more than what they paid for them, genuinely. Especially if they take, you know, several years. The evolutions from Prismatic will probably go up over time. But, you know, these are different types of end games that people have. Master sets, people who just like to collect. People who only want PSA 10s for everything. People who, like myself, like just keeping binders of things. Like for me, I'm doing the full art trainers. There's different types of collectors and different types of end games that people see themselves completing, basically. I think overall the end games for all of these are completely reasonable, and people are entitled to see what they want to see and collect what they want to collect and spend their money on what they want to spend their money on. Overall, there's nothing wrong with any of these. The different end games overall are all pretty good. I think for an overall, if you want to stay in the hobby as long as possible, I think there are a couple that do definitely burn out faster. Like I mentioned earlier, the casual people who only, I feel like, go for slabs probably burn themselves out a little bit faster just because it's more expensive. I feel like if you're into master sets, you probably burn yourself out a little bit, you know, not as quickly, but I definitely feel like once, you know, if your goal is all of SVR, eventually you will complete that. Probably only takes maybe 15,000 or so, which is definitely a lot of money to a lot of people, but it's not unreasonable for somebody to spend $15,000 on Pokemon over the course of 3-4 years. It's not unreasonable. So eventually people will hit that end goal. For me, I have a master set that I want to complete that is technically never ending. There will always be more full art trainers that will always be being released in the new sets that I'll have to grab. You know, the new black and white is going to have N, it's going to have a Hilda card. I think these are cards I'm going to have to grab at some point, and it just makes the overall master set bigger and bigger and bigger over time. So eventually where I'm going to have multiple binders full of just full art trainers once I've kind of completed it all. So yeah, there's different end games for different types of collectors. Ultimately, there's also the final end game collection is our end game goal of what happens to your collection. Whether you don't need it anymore because you're no longer disappear, or even just you outgrow it. You're no longer in need of this collection. Where do you see the end game of yourself with the collection as a whole? Do you sell it? I know for me, there's stuff I've sold that I kind of regret selling. There's cards that I have that I'm like, I kind of wish I had held on to that a little bit longer. It was pretty cool. So people have different goals, different aspirations for what they want to sell, when they want to sell, if they need to make money. Things come up in life that require you to, sell it, and things like that do happen. And, it's completely understandable. If when we're 80 years old, are we going to think to ourselves, oh, I wish I still had all those Pokemon cards? Probably not. But, selling is a point in time that most people come across, and that's an end goal for a lot of people. An end game for so many people is what their selling point is, what their break-even point is, what price point can they not ignore for their collection, to where it's like, well, that's life-changing money. If somebody's offering me that, I can't turn it down. And like I said, for a lot of people, it's different price points. Some people that complete stuff sooner and have a shorter time frame, different amount of money. People longer term, different amount of money. But overall, eventually it all gets sold or passed down to generations. I know some people, I'm going to always pass the Pokemon cards on to kids and grandkids. That's great, but eventually it will get sold. We won't be here forever, and eventually kids and grandkids won't have a connection to it, and will obviously need the money more than we will. So eventually stuff gets sold. It's just, what is your end game for the collection? To wrap it up here, not a whole big conclusion, just kind of yapping about what I feel like people's different viewpoints of the hobby are, what their different sell points are, just kind of overall. Ultimately, the big thing about collecting is you want to have fun. I think as long as you keep collecting fun and keep yourself entertained by it, and it brings you joy, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of the things I mentioned before. Whether you're here for a year or two, whether you're here for 25, 30, 80 years, you're 80 years old and still have your collection, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that. I think as long as the hobby brings you joy, there's nothing wrong. So yeah, not a super deep conversation overall. Just kind of wanted to bring up some stuff that, I was thinking about when I was looking through my binder, seeing what people thought about it. Let me know in the comments what you think, what your end game is, what your end goal of your collection is, whether to pass down to kids, sell for a house, anything like that. Let me know. Join the Discord, links in the description. Like and subscribe. It'd help out a ton. And Tuesday's video, I won't have a giant head of hair anymore, so I'm looking forward to that, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. So like I said, if you could do all that for me, appreciate it. But otherwise, I'm out of here. Thank you.